Zimbabwe's land reform program, a good idea that became a shambles. Land in Zimbabwe is the economy, and the economy is land. These were the famous words of Zimbabwe's former president Robert Gabriel Mugabe. They captured the spirit behind the most ambitious land reform program in Africa, one that promised justice, independence, and prosperity. But today, 2 decades, Zimbabwe's land reform is told with sorrow and controversy. What began as a noble idea to correct historical injustice turned into national economic disaster. In this video, we explore why Zimbabwe's land reform happened and how it turned into chaos, its economic impact, and what is being done today to fix the damage. To understand Zimbabwe's land reform, we must go back to colonial times. Under British colonial rule, the best and most fertile lands were seized from the African communities and given to white settlers. By independence in 1980, about 4,500 white farmers owned 70% of arable land, while millions of black Zimbabweans were crowded on poor quality communal lands. The 1980 Lancashire House Agreement, which ended white minority rule, included a clause that says land redistribution would be on a willing buyer, willing seller basis, and no forced seizures would occur for 10 years. During the 1980s and 90s, the government acquired land slowly, about 3.5 million hectares by 1997, mostly through legal means, but this was seen as too slow by war veterans, landless citizens, and political elites. So tensions grew and pressure mounted. And in 2000, after losing a referendum and facing political pressure, Mugabe launched the fast-track land reform program. Suddenly, farms were no longer bought, they were seized. Thousands of white commercial farmers were driven off their land, often violently, and the seizures were chaotic and unplanned. Some farms were split up for poor families, but others went to political allies with no farming experience. And the result? Zimbabwe went from being the bread basket of Southern Africa to a country facing food shortages, unemployment, and inflation. Commercial agriculture collapsed. Tobacco, wheat, maize, and beef industry shrank dramatically. Foreign investment vanished, and by 2008, inflation had hit 89.76 trillion%. What started as an effort to bring justice to the landless led to economic collapse. Economic impact and collapse. The figures were painful. GDP fell from nearly 50%, about 50% between 2000 and 2008. And over 300,000 farm workers lost their jobs, affecting over 1 million people. Foreign donors pulled out, leaving public services to collapse. Food production fell by more than half, leading to dependence on food aid. Zimbabwe had to import maize, the very crop it used to export, in surplus. Supermarkets were empty, basic services and hospitals, schools were crippled. The World Bank and IMF suspended funding. Zimbabwe became a pariah state, and millions of its people fled to South Africa, Botswana, and beyond. But was it all just chaos? Some argued the intention was right, to correct colonial injustice, but the execution was a complete disaster. So, what were the attempts to rectify it? After Mugabe was ousted in 2017, his successor Emmerson Mnangagwa promised to fix the economy and make Zimbabwe open for business. Here is what has been tried. Number 1, compensation deal. By 2020, the government signed a 3.5 billion deal to compensate and evicted white farmers for improvements on the land, not the land itself. This was a gesture to rebuild trust and attract investment. And number 2, land leases and titles. Instead of free land, new farmers are being offered 99-year leases. These leases can be used to access loans and credit, a crucial step for modern farming. And number 3, joint ventures. The government is encouraging partnership between former white farmers and new landowners to bring back expertise and productivity. Number 4, re-engagement with the West. Zimbabwe has made efforts to return to the Commonwealth and repair relations with institutions like World Bank and IMF, though the progress is very slow. Under the mantra, Zimbabwe is open for business. Number 5, command agriculture. and the Fumbudza Intwasa program. Government-led farming schemes aim to increase food security. Fumbudza, for example, promotes conservation farming in small plots with inputs supplied by the state. And still the challenges remain. Land audit shows that some elites hold multiple farmers, and land disputes are still common. Infrastructure, irrigation, and access to finance remain weak. So, was it worth it? So, was Zimbabwe's land reform so much worth of it? From a justice point of view, yes, land needed to be redistributed. No country can even sustain a situation where a tiny majority owns most of the land, while the majority live in poverty. But from an economic and governance point of view, the reform was a complete disaster. The lack of planning, the politicization of land, and the destruction of functioning commercial agriculture sector led to immense suffering. And 2 decades later, Zimbabwe is still recovering. Food production is slowly improving. Some tobacco farmers are back on their feet. And smallholder farmers are beginning to contribute more, but without major investment and the policy strategy. Zimbabwe cannot return to its former agricultural glory. Zimbabwe's land reform was not a mistake in principle, but a tragedy in execution. It was a good idea that became a shambles, not because land should not have been redistributed, but because it was done with violence, corruption, and no clear strategy. The country is now trying to correct the course, but it will take time, honesty, and accountability to heal the wounds of the past. As Zimbabweans continue to till the soil, they carry both point of the lost potential and the hope of better, more equitable future. The land is still the economy. The question is, can Zimbabwe finally make that land work for everyone? Yes, but there is still need for hope and trust to be regained within the society. Because to be honest, the social consequences were equally severe. Food shortages led to hunger and malnutrition. Political violence intensified with these land reform programs. With the farm invasion often accompanied by intimidation, beatings, and even death, the land reform was also polarized Zimbabwean society. While many supported the principle of the redistribution, the execution left people disillusioned, and a whole generation of youth grew in a country where land was no longer productive. Jobs were scarce, and the dream of prosperity seemed like a distant memory. However, with proper title deeds, capital access, and consistent policies, many resettled farmers remained trapped in poverty. For land reform to succeed, Zimbabwe needs to shift from political rhetoric to practical solutions, supporting all farmers regardless of background to make the land productive again. Like I've said, Zimbabwe's land reform was a necessary idea, a bold attempt to correct historical injustice, but its execution turned a national dream into a national crisis. The challenge now is to rebuild what was lost, restore agriculture, and heal the wounds of the land that still hold the promise, if only it is nurtured wisely. And whatever is to happen in the future of the agriculture of Zimbabwe, we wish the best for the country to see its people flourishing. And whatever happens, I'm here to marinate you with more information. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on your thoughts on the land reform program in Zimbabwe. Was it justified, or could it have been handled differently? Would love to hear your voices. Like, share, and subscribe. This is your man on The Lens Africa, the eye that sees beyond everything, the eye that sees the Africa that we would love to see. Thank you for watching this program. Thank you.